Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars fade away one by one. He had been exploring space for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this before. The void ahead of them was not just empty. It was wrong. "Captain, we're getting strange readings," said Hyojin from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, a woman who never showed fear. But now her voice had a small shake in it. "The sensors can't make sense of what's out there." Tejo walked over to look at her screen. The data made no sense. Where there should have been stars, there was nothing. Not darkness, not empty space, but true nothing. It was like someone had taken a giant eraser and removed part of the universe. "Wubin, what do your instruments say?" Tejo called to the ship's engineer. Wubin looked up from his controls, sweat on his face. "Captain, this is impossible. Light goes in, but it doesn't come out. Radio waves stop completely. It's like there's a wall made of nothing." So Young, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, came running onto the bridge. Her face was pale. "Captain, I've been watching this thing for 3 hours. It's growing. Whatever it is, it's getting bigger." Tejo felt a cold feeling in his stomach. They were supposed to be on a simple exploration mission. Earth had sent them to map this region of space far beyond where any human had ever gone before. They were looking for new worlds, new resources, maybe even new friends among the stars. They were not supposed to find something that ate reality itself. "G1, can you send a message back to Earth?" Tejo asked the communications officer. G1 tried her equipment for several minutes. Her face grew more worried with each attempt. "No, sir. Something is blocking all our signals. It's like they're being absorbed." "Sir, we should leave," Heejin said quietly. "Whatever this is, it's not natural. We need to warn Earth." Tejo knew she was right. The smart thing would be to turn around and run. But humans had not reached the stars by being smart all the time. Sometimes they had to be brave and foolish. "No," he said. "We need to understand what this is. If it's growing, it might threaten other worlds. We need information." He ordered the ship to move closer to the strange void. As they approached, more instruments began to fail. The lights on the bridge flickered. The air recycling system made strange noises. "Captain, the ship's computer is having problems," Wubin reported. "It keeps trying to calculate what's ahead of us, but the math doesn't work. It's like trying to divide by zero." The horizon's edge moved closer to the edge of the void. Tejo could see it now with his own eyes. It was not black like empty space. It was the complete absence of anything. Looking at it hurt his brain, like trying to imagine a color that didn't exist. Then the whispers started. At first, Tejo thought it was just static from the damaged communications system, but the sounds were too regular, too much like voices. He looked around the bridge. Everyone else heard it too. The whispers grew louder. They were not coming through the ship's speakers. They were coming from inside their heads. "Welcome, young ones," the voice said without speaking. It felt old, older than planets, older than stars. "We have been waiting for you." Hyejin reached for her weapon, but there was nothing to shoot. So Young tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Wubin kept working on his controls, but nothing responded. "Who are you?" Tejo said out loud, feeling foolish for talking to empty air. "We are the Void Shepherds," the voice replied. "We are the gardeners of the cosmos. We have watched civilizations rise and fall for billions of years, and now we watch you." Images appeared in their minds, not on screens, but directly in their thoughts. They saw worlds covered in crystal cities, then saw those worlds become dust. They saw ships that could cross galaxies in heartbeats, then saw those ships disappear into nothing. They saw species that had learned to control the forces of creation itself, then saw them fade away like dreams. "Every thinking species follows the same path," the shepherds continued. "You grow, you spread, you consume, you destroy. In the end, you always threaten the balance of existence itself, so we act before that happens." "You destroy civilizations," Tejo said. It was not a question. "We preserve the universe," the shepherds replied. "Young species do not understand. You see only your own small lives, your own small worlds. You do not see the damage you cause to the fabric of reality. Left alone, you would eventually unravel everything. Tejo felt anger growing in his chest. So you decide who lives and who dies. We decide who grows beyond wisdom and who does not, the shepherd said. We have studied your species, humans. You spread faster than most. You adapt better than most. You are more dangerous than most. The void around them began to pulse. Tejo could feel it reaching for the ship like invisible hands. You will return to your home world, the shepherds commanded. You will stop all exploration beyond your system. You will never again venture into the deep spaces. If you refuse, we will remove you from existence, just as we have removed all the others. Tejo looked around at his crew. They were afraid, but they were also angry. He could see it in their eyes. Humans did not like being told what they could and could not do. No, Tejo said simply. The whisper stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. What did you say? The shepherds asked. I said no, Tejo repeated, louder this time. We don't negotiate with bullies. We don't take orders from things that hide in the dark and threaten genocide. That's the first rule of being human. The void around them began to move, reaching out like hungry mouths. Then you have chosen extinction, the shepherds said. The darkness began to swallow their ship. The darkness moved like living liquid around the horizon's edge. Tejo watched in horror as pieces of his ship simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but erased as if they had never been built. Hull breach in Section 7. Wubin called out, then paused. Wait, no. There is no Section 7 anymore, it's just gone. Hyejin worked frantically at her station, trying to activate the ship's defenses, but the weapon systems were disappearing faster than she could use them. Captain, our missiles just vanished. The launch tubes are still there, but the missiles never existed. Tejo felt his mind struggling to understand what was happening. The void was not just destroying their ship. It was removing it from reality itself, making it so the destroyed parts had never been made in the first place. So young. What are you finding? He asked the scientist. So Young was bent over her instruments, her face pale with concentration. This should be impossible, she said. These readings show that the entity is operating outside our normal laws of physics. It's like it comes from a place where the rules are different. The ship shook as more sections disappeared. The lights flickered and went out in some areas. The artificial gravity wavered, making everyone feel sick. Ji-Wan, any luck with communications? Tejo asked desperately. The equipment is working, but there's nowhere for the signals to go, Ji-Wan replied. It's like we're surrounded by a wall that eats information. Through the ship's speakers, the shepherds spoke again. You see now why resistance is futile. We do not simply kill, we unmake. When we are finished, you will never have existed at all. No one will remember you. No records will show your passing. Tejo gripped the arm of his captain's chair. Why do you do this? What gives you the right? Images flooded their minds again. They saw the shepherds as they once were, billions of years ago. They had been a physical species like humans, living on worlds under stars. But they had grown beyond the need for bodies, beyond the need for matter itself. We were the first, the shepherds explained. We learned to transcend the limitations of flesh and stone. We became pure thought, pure consciousness. And from this higher state, we could see the patterns. The images showed civilization after civilization. Each one started small, grew large, reached for the stars, and then fell. Some destroyed themselves in wars. Others poisoned their worlds. A few grew so advanced that they began to damage the structure of space and time itself. Every species follows the same path, the shepherds continued. Growth, expansion, overreach, destruction. It is as predictable as the orbit of planets, so we learn to intervene before the damage becomes too great. You're mass murderers, Hyejin said angrily. We are gardeners, the shepherds replied calmly. When weeds threaten a garden, they must be removed so that the garden can thrive. Namho, the ship's historian who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. Captain, I've been studying the data they're showing us. There's something wrong with their logic. Tejo turned to him. What do you mean? Look at the patterns they're describing, Namho said, pointing to his screen where he had been analyzing the alien images. Every civilization they show follows the exact same progression: growth, expansion, stagnation, fall. But that's not how humans work. Explain, Tejo ordered while around them more of the ship faded away. Humans adapt, Namho said quickly. We don't follow predictable patterns. When we hit a wall, we find a way around it. When we face extinction, we evolve. When we're told something is impossible, we do it anyway. So Young looked up from her instruments with excitement. He's right. I've been studying the biological data in their memories. Every species they destroyed was following standard evolutionary patterns, but humans broke those patterns millions of years ago. How? Tejo asked. Cooperation across genetic lines. So Young explained rapidly. Most species compete within themselves until they develop technology. Then they either unite or destroy themselves. But humans learned to work with unrelated groups while we were still using stone tools. We're the only species that forms families, with non-relatives. Wubin suddenly shouted from his station. Captain, I've been analyzing the way this void works. It's not just from outside our universe. It's actively damaging our reality by existing here. What do you mean? Tejo demanded. Think of space-time like a cloth, Wubin said, his hands flying over his controls as he worked. Normal matter sits on the cloth like balls making dents. But this void is like acid. Every time it unmakes something, it burns holes in the fabric. Hyejin understood first. You're saying they're doing exactly what they claim to prevent? Exactly, Wubin said. By removing civilizations from existence, they're weakening the structure of reality itself. They've been doing it for billions of years. The universe is full of holes now. The shepherd's voice returned, but now it sounded angry. You do not understand the greater purpose. Short-term damage is acceptable to prevent long-term catastrophe. But you're causing the catastrophe, So Young shouted. You've spent so long preventing species from growing that you never learned what they might become if you let them. We have seen what they become. The shepherds replied coldly. Destroyers. Consumers. Threats. Tejo felt something click in his mind. A plan began. To form crazy and dangerous, but possibly their only chance. What if you're wrong? He asked. What if there's a species that could actually help fix the damage instead of causing it? Impossible, the shepherd said. We have observed for eons. The pattern never changes. Then you've never met humans, Tejo said with a grim smile. Around them, the ship continued to dissolve. But Tejo was no longer afraid. He was getting angry, and when humans got angry, they stopped following the rules. Wubin, can you plot a course deeper into this void? He asked. Captain, that's suicide. Hyejin protested. No, Tejo said. That's how we fight something that thinks it knows everything about us. We do something it can't predict. He turned to address the empty air where the shepherd's voice came from. You want to judge humanity? Fine, but you're going to do it face to face. The horizon's edge, what was left of it, turned toward the heart of the void and accelerated. The horizon's edge emerged from the void into a place that hurt to look at. Tejo and his crew found themselves in a space that existed between the gaps of reality, where the normal rules of physics meant nothing. They stood on what might have been the bridge of their ship, or might have been something else entirely. The walls shifted and flowed like water, but remained solid to the touch. Above them, below them, and all around them stretched an impossible landscape of pure thought made visible. In this space waited the void shepherds. They were enormous beings of living shadow and starlight, ancient beyond measure. Each one was the size of a moon, but Tejo could somehow see them clearly despite their vast scale. They moved like slowly drifting clouds, but their attention focused on the humans with the weight of eons. Foolish children, the largest shepherd spoke without words. You have brought yourselves to us willingly. Now you will understand the true scope of your insignificance. Tejo felt like an ant standing before mountains, but he refused to be intimidated. We came here to talk, not to grovel. Talk? Another, Shepard's voice carried amusement like the sound of dying stars. What could you possibly say that we have not heard before? Every species believes it is special. Every species thinks it deserves to survive. Heejin stepped forward, her military training taking over. Then prove you're right, she challenged. If you're so certain about the pattern, let us present our case. Even cosmic judges should follow some kind of law. The shepherds fell silent. Around them, the impossible space rippled with what might have been surprise. You demand a trial? The first shepherd asked slowly. We demand the right to defend ourselves, Taeho said firmly. If you're going to wipe out humanity, at least have the courage to hear why you're wrong. The shepherds conferred among themselves in ways the humans could not understand. Finally, they spoke again. Very well. We have rules, ancient ones that govern such matters. You may present your defense, but when you fail, as all others have failed, your species will be removed from existence. Agreed, Taeho said without hesitation. A space opened around them like a courtroom made of crystallized thoughts. The humans found themselves standing in the center, with the shepherds arranged in a circle around them like vast judges. Present. Your case? The chief shepherd commanded. So Young stepped forward first. Look at us, she said, gesturing to her companions. Really look at us, not at your data about us. She pulled out her scanner and displayed holographic images in the air. These are human genetic patterns. See how diverse we are? Taeho's ancestors came from Korea. Mine came from Korea too, but from a different region. Hyejin's family moved around the world for generations. The images showed the complex web of human genetic diversity. Most species achieve space travel with a single dominant genetic line, but humans did it with hundreds of different groups working together. We're not one species trying to survive. We're dozens of species that chose to become one. Cooperation born from necessity, one shepherd dismissed. When resources become scarce, even competing groups will work together temporarily. No, Namho interrupted, stepping forward with his historical data. That's where you're wrong. Look. At this. His scanner projected images of human history, battles and wars, but also art and music shared between enemies. Trade routes that crossed continents, stories and ideas that spread faster than armies. Humans have been sharing culture across genetic lines for 50,000 years, Namho said. Before we had cities, before we had agriculture, we were already teaching our children the songs of strangers. We don't just cooperate when we have to. We cooperate because we want to. Yet you also fight, another shepherd pointed out. Your history is full of wars and conflicts. Because we're not perfect, Hyejin said bluntly. But look what we do. After the wars, we rebuild, we learn, we make new rules to prevent the same mistakes. Each generation gets a little better at working together. All species learn from their mistakes, the shepherds replied, until they grow powerful enough that their mistakes destroy them. Wubin had been quietly working on his scanner throughout the trial. Now he looked up with a grim expression. Actually, you're the ones making the destructive mistakes. He projected a three-dimensional map of space-time around them. It was full of holes and weak spots, places where the fabric of reality had been damaged. Every time you unmake a civilization, you damage the universe, Wubin explained. You've been doing this for billions of years. Look at the pattern. The map showed how the damage was spreading, growing worse over time. The holes in reality were connecting, forming weak zones that could collapse entirely. You've become the very threat you were trying to prevent, Wubin said quietly. You're destroying the universe piece by piece. The shepherd's silence stretched, for long moments. When they spoke again, their voices carried uncertainty for the first time. The greater good requires sacrifice, they said, but the words sounded hollow. Does it? Taeho asked. Or are you just afraid to admit you've been wrong for billions of years? We have seen the patterns, the chief shepherd insisted. Young species grow, expand, and destroy. It is inevitable. Then why are we here? So Young demanded. According to your pattern, we should have destroyed ourselves already. We should have poisoned our world or blown it up in wars, but we didn't. We're here, talking to you, trying to Find a better way. An anomaly, the shepherd said. A temporary deviation from the pattern. Or maybe, Tejo said quietly, we're what you get when you let a species grow up instead of killing it in childhood. He stepped forward, looking up at the vast beings surrounding them. You want to know what makes humans different? We don't accept that problems can't be solved. You say civilizations always fall? We say let's be the first one that doesn't. You say the universe is breaking? We say let's fix it. Impossible, the shepherds declared. We love that word, Tejo said with a smile. Impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet. The space around them began to shift and change as the shepherds conferred again. When they spoke, their voices carried the weight of a decision that had been billions of years in the making. Your arguments are interesting, they admitted, but words are not proof. If humanity is truly different, prove it. How? Hyojin asked. Survive our judgment, the chief shepherd said. Face the trial of will that we give to all species. If you can adapt to what cannot be adapted to, if you can solve what cannot be solved, then perhaps you are worthy of continued existence. The space around them began to collapse and reform. Tejo felt reality bending in ways that made his mind reel. What kind of trial, he asked. The kind that has never been passed, the shepherds replied. The trial began with reality itself attacking them. Tejo found himself facing a version of himself that was everything he was not. This other Tejo was cruel, selfish, and filled with hatred for all other forms of life. The false captain attacked, with weapons that could unmake matter itself. Around him, his crew faced their own impossible challenges. Hyojin fought against armies that existed in 17 dimensions at once. So Young tried to heal a disease that killed by making life itself forget how to exist. Wubin worked to repair machines that had never been built. Namho struggled to remember history that was being rewritten as he watched. This is the trial of absolute impossibility, the shepherds explained as the humans struggled. Every species that reaches this point faces challenges that have no solution. They must adapt to what cannot be adapted to. They must solve what cannot be solved. Tejo dodged another attack from his evil twin. The false version of himself was stronger, faster, and had better weapons. By every logical measure, Tejo should have lost immediately, but Tejo had spent his whole life being human, and humans had never been logical. Instead of trying to beat his opponent with strength, Tejo started talking to him. You know what's funny about being me? He said, blocking a reality-destroying sword with his bare hands. I've never wanted to be anyone else. The evil Tejo paused, confused. What are you doing? Being human, Tejo replied. You're supposed to be everything I'm not, right? But that's impossible. If you're everything I'm not, then you can't be me at all. You're just some angry thing, wearing my face. The false captain flickered and became less solid. Tejo pressed his advantage not with weapons but with words. I know who I am, he continued. I'm a man who explores space because he wants to meet new friends. I'm a captain who cares more about his crew than his career. I'm a human who thinks the universe is beautiful and wants to help protect it. With each word, the evil version of himself became weaker. Finally, it dissolved entirely. Impossible, one of the shepherds whispered. He solved the trial by refusing to accept its premise. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Hyojin had stopped trying to fight the 17-dimensional armies. Instead, she was teaching them how to fight alongside each other. You're all soldiers, she called out to the strange beings. You understand duty and honor. So let's work together instead of killing each other. The armies, confused by this approach, began to lower their weapons and talk to each other instead of fighting. So Young had given up trying to cure the impossible disease. Instead, she was talking to it like it was a living thing. You're not evil, she said to the plague that killed by erasing life. You're just confused. You think existence is pain, so you're trying to help by ending it. But existence can be joy too. Let me show you. She shared her memories of laughter, of friendship, of the wonder she felt when discovering new forms of life. The disease began to change, becoming something that enhanced life instead of destroying it. Wu Bin had built something impossible. He had created a machine that had never been designed by using parts that had never been manufactured to solve a problem that had never been defined. Humans are really good at making things work even when they shouldn't, he explained to the baffled shepherds. Nam Ho had done something even stranger. When the history around him kept changing, he had started writing new history. If the past keeps shifting, he said, then I'll just make sure the future stays stable. He was creating historical records for events that hadn't happened yet, anchoring them to reality so strongly that they had to come true. The shepherds watched in growing amazement as the humans turned every impossible challenge into something else entirely. How? The chief shepherd demanded. How are you doing this? We're not following your rules, Taeho explained, rejoining his crew as the trial space stabilized around them. You designed these tests to have no solutions, so we created our own. Solutions. That's cheating, another shepherd protested. That's adapting, Hyejin corrected. Humans don't accept that problems can't be solved. We just find new ways to approach them. But the shepherds were not finished. The space around them began to shake and crack as the ancient beings prepared their final gambit. If you will not accept defeat, the chief shepherd said, then we will unmake everything. We will destroy this entire region of space rather than allow a chaotic species to threaten the cosmic order. The humans felt the power building around them. It was enough energy to erase entire star systems, to remove whole sections of the galaxy from existence. You're willing to destroy billions of innocent beings just to stop us? So Young asked in horror. The needs of the universe outweigh the needs of any individual part, the shepherds replied coldly. That was when Taeho realized something. Throughout this entire encounter, he had been thinking of the shepherds as judges or gods. But they weren't. They were just very old, very powerful, and very scared. You're not doing this to protect the universe, he said quietly. You're doing it because you're afraid of losing control. We are the guardians of cosmic order, the shepherds declared. You're dictators, Taeho replied. You've spent billions of years killing anyone who might grow powerful enough to question you. You're not protecting the universe. You're protecting your own authority. The power building around them faltered as the shepherds hesitated. We have seen what happens when species grow too powerful, they insisted. You've seen what happens when you kill them before they can learn better, Nam Ho countered. But you've never seen what happens when you let them grow up and take responsibility. That's the real trial, isn't it? Wu Bin added. You're not testing whether we can adapt to the impossible. You're testing whether you can adapt to not being in charge anymore. The shepherds fell silent. Around them, the reality-destroying power continued to build, but now it seemed uncertain, wavering between unleashing destruction and simply fading away. Taeho made a decision that would change everything. We'll take it, he said. Take what? The chief shepherd asked. The responsibility, Taeho replied. You're right that the universe needs guardians. You're right that powerful species can be dangerous, but you're wrong about the solution. He looked around at his crew and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his own heart. Humanity will take over the job, he said. We'll be the new shepherds, but we'll do it right. The void shepherds stared at Taeho in complete silence. Around them, the reality-destroying energy hung in the air like a held breath, waiting for a decision that would determine the fate of countless worlds. You offer to replace us? The chief shepherd finally asked. You, who have barely learned to travel between stars, wish to guard the entire universe? Not just us, Taeho said. All of us. Every species that you would have killed, every civilization that you cut down before it could grow. We'll help them learn to be responsible instead of just destroying them. Impossible, another shepherd declared. Young species cannot be trusted with such power. Then teach them, So Young said simply. Instead of killing children for making mistakes, why not help them learn to do better? Hyejin stepped forward. You say you've been watching us. Then you know humans make mistakes, but we also learn from them. Every generation gets better at working together. Your species still has wars, a shepherd pointed out. Our species stopped having world wars, Namho corrected. We learned that cooperation works better than conquest. We're still learning, but we're getting better. Wubin activated his scanner, showing the damage that billions of years of pruning had done to space-time itself. Your method isn't working. Look at what you've accomplished. The universe is more damaged now than it would have been if you had never interfered. The chief shepherd's voice carried pain when it spoke again. We did what we believed was necessary. We have watched civilizations grow beyond wisdom and destroy themselves or others. We could not allow that pattern to continue. But you never let the pattern finish, Tejo said gently. You killed every species right at the moment when they might have learned to be better. How do you know what they might have become if you had given them the chance? The space around them began to shift as the shepherds considered this. The reality-destroying energy faded slightly, but did not disappear entirely. Even if your intentions are pure, the chief shepherd said slowly, you lack the power to enforce cosmic peace. You cannot make other species behave responsibly. We don't want to make them do anything, Tejo replied. We want to help them choose to do better. And if they choose wrongly? Tejo looked at his crew, then back at the ancient beings surrounding them. Then we'll help them fix their mistakes the same way we fix our own. You would fight wars to protect the innocent? Another shepherd asked. If we had to, Hyojin admitted, but we'd rather prevent wars by helping people understand each other. You would risk the stability of the universe on the hope that others will learn wisdom. We'd risk chaos for the chance of something better, So Young said, because stagnation isn't safety, it's just slow death. The shepherds fell silent again, conferring among themselves in ways the humans couldn't understand. When they spoke again, their voices carried the weight of eons. You ask us to abandon billions of years of certainty for an experiment that may fail catastrophically. We're asking you to have hope, Tejo said simply. The chief shepherd made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been weeping. Hope. We had forgotten that word. When you live forever and control everything, what is there to hope for? Namho asked quietly. Perhaps, the chief shepherd said slowly. That is where we went wrong. The reality-destroying energy began to fade, but the shepherds still had not made their final decision. If we agree to this, the chief shepherd said, if we step aside and allow you to attempt this impossibility, what assurance do we have that you will not become the very threat we have spent eons preventing? Tejo thought for a long moment. None, he said finally. We might fail. We might make terrible mistakes. We might become everything you fear. Then why should we trust you? Because, Tejo said with a smile that had become legendary among the stars, humans never learned when to quit. If we start becoming a threat to the universe, we'll just have to figure out how to stop being a threat. That's what we do. The shepherds considered this for what felt like an eternity. Finally, the chief shepherd spoke. Very well. We will step aside. But not completely. The space around them began to change, becoming less alien and more comprehensible. The shepherds themselves began to shift, becoming smaller, more approachable. We will guide you if you will accept guidance, the chief shepherd continued. We will share our knowledge, our warnings about threats that exist beyond even our power to stop. There are things in the deep darkness between galaxies that even we feared to face. We'll face them together, Tejo said without hesitation. Together, the chief shepherd agreed. Perhaps that is the word we had forgotten along with hope. The void around them began to brighten, transforming from a region of death into something else entirely. The holes in space-time that the shepherds had torn over billions of years began to heal, sealed by energy that felt like laughter and determination combined. The dark between stars will become something new, the chief shepherd explained. A place where young civilizations can come to learn, where old ones can share wisdom, where the defenders of the universe can gather when the truly dangerous threats emerge. And if humanity fails in this task, another shepherd asked, then, we'll try again, So Young said confidently, and again until we get it right. Years later, Captain Tejo stood in the command center of the first cosmic defense station, built in the space that had once been the dark between stars. Through the viewing windows, he could see ships from a dozen different species working together to repair the damage that eons of cosmic gardening had done to reality itself. His crew had scattered to new assignments. Hyojin commanded the defense fleet that protected young civilizations from threats they weren't ready to face. So Young led teams of scientists from multiple species, working to understand and heal the wounds in space-time. Wubin designed new technologies that allowed different species to work together, despite their vastly different capabilities. Namho had become the keeper of the new cosmic laws, rules based on cooperation instead of control. And in the depths of the station, the former Void Shepherds worked alongside human engineers, sharing billions of years of knowledge while learning what it meant to hope again. "Sir," a young communications officer called out, "we're receiving a distress signal from the edge of the galaxy. Something is attacking the colonies there." Tejo smiled the same smile he had worn when facing impossible odds. "Scramble the fleet. Let's go remind the universe why the first rule of cosmic citizenship is simple. Don't challenge humans." As the ships launched from the station carrying crews from 100 different worlds united in purpose, the laughter that echoed through the transformed darkness sounded very much like hope.